It's beginning to look a lot. Well, hello, Shiny Crafty People. It's Tim Totten here, and welcome back to the channel. I know it's only early November, but I'm getting ready for Christmas. Of course, I'm not going to skip Thanksgiving in between, but Christmas is almost here, and I want to show you how to make this cute treat bag. Now, I saw this on a really quick Facebook reel, like a 60-second video, without a lot of description. I want to show you how you can make this, and I've changed my version a little bit because I think that maybe you should have some things different with this. Specifically, I wanted to make this thing reversible. So in fact, the version I made is reversible. You can make a different color lining on the inside and have a treat bag that can be used either way. Now it's pretty big inside. This bag actually has about a 6-inch opening here that you can put all kinds, maybe about a 7-inch opening, and you can put all kinds of great treats and stuff in there. And the idea, it becomes a reusable bag. You could make it bigger too, but I wanted to size this so that you could get your template out of a single 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm not gonna give you the template. I'm gonna show you in just a minute how to make it and then show you how to make this great piece. But you could actually get 2 of these out of 2 fat quarters. So why don't you join me down at the cutting table and I'll show you what it takes to make this cute, reusable Christmas treat bag. We're gonna need fabric for this, and you've probably already seen from the beginning of the video what fabric I chose, but I am gonna talk to you through what I looked at first to decide. I have this beautiful red fabric with this gold. I've had this for 5 or 6 years. I love it, but this really is not gonna look like a Christmas tree, so it's out. We can get some other greens. I could go super green with this, like bright green, but I don't know if that's the right plant. I do have a bunch of Christmas fat quarters that I bought in a pack, but I don't know how well this reads as a Christmas tree. I want it more green, and there's just not a lot of green in this pack. Like, that's clearly not gonna work. This has, the words are way too big. So for me, I don't really wanna go anything in this. I could almost choose this particular one, but it's not a full fat quarter. I've been cutting some pieces off of it, and I do need a fat quarter. I'm gonna design this to fit a full fat quarter. So the red with trees on it might be a little too obvious, and this one, I guess, would be fine, although, and it is a full fat quarter, but I just don't know if it's all that perfect. I do have some other fabrics that I really like. I have this particular fabric that was gifted to me, and I think that I need a lining, and I need it outside. And I mean, it's a very traditional feeling, but I think it'll feel a little more Christmas tree-like, and then I can make a little stem for the bottom, like the trunk out of this, and maybe also make the straps that'll pull through and pull it tight. Now there's some options to do with that. I could use some cording. The only cording I have in my little sewing studio right now is this sort of black cording, and I think this is not Christmassy and it's too thick. You could use some ribbon. I happen to have some elastic that I bought years ago during when the pandemic first started and we were trying to find the different kinds of elastics to use. This might be a little flashy next to it because you see it's sort of like, it's got this, sparkle in it. And there's really not a color that I think would work for that. So I used all the red for something else. And then even the red on that it just might be too flashy. And I don't know if I want elastic. So I think what I will do instead is I will make it out of these two, the lining, the outer, and then I will do the strip with this, the trunk and the strips out of this, and show you a little cool, fun trick you can do to turn those inside out. All right, let's get started. We have to draft a pattern first, so let's start with that. Now, the nice thing about making this out of a fat quarter is that I can actually get both sides, both outside pieces of the material out of one fat quarter, because the fat quarter is 18 by 22. So this is an 11-inch sheet of paper. 11 and 11 is 22. Ta-da, perfect. And then you'll have some of the fat quarter left over. So you'll need 2 fat quarters to do this, or just some amount of fabric that'll have at least that amount on it. To make this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and fold this thing in half so I can start drafting, because that'll give me my full width. And then I need to decide how big of an opening across the top that I want. So I want it to be at least 6 inches or more. I'm gonna put the fold on this side. So this is the fold, and this is the 2 open pieces. That's because I'm right-handed, and so it's gonna be easier for me to work to the right. You might be left-handed and want to work the other way. So you need something to measure with, and you need some kind of a pen, which I have here. So we're gonna measure from the top over by 4 inches. Remember, you'll have seam allowances and stuff on here. Now, I could just give you a link to a template and you could figure that out. But frankly, I want to teach you how to make templates. So I'm going to go over to the 4-inch mark and put that on. That's 4 inches. And then I'm just going to draw a very light line all the way to the bottom edge down here. Just lightly drag that along so you can kind of see that line down the side there. Now this is an 8.5-inch piece of paper. And so I want to do like 4 sections. I'm going to make the bottom 2 1/4 inches, and then 2 inches, 2 inches, and then the top will be 2 1/4 inches, and that'll get our 8.5. And the 1/4 inch at the top and the bottom can be our seam allowances. It's going to work out great. So what I'm going to do with that is I will come here and mark. Well, what I'm going to do is mark lines this way. So I'll use my ruler. So I'll have my 2 inches here. And what I'm going to do is put my 2 1/4 inch line along the bottom edge. That's 1, 2 1/4 inch there. And just draw a real light line across there. I'm only going to use this point and another point. And while I'm here, I'm going to measure over 1 inch. There. And if you want to right now, you can go ahead and connect those lines at the bottom. Okay, so those are our lines, and I'll darken in these lines that are going to be. Those are our lines that are going to be our cut lines. Then I'm going to put the 2-inch mark along that line. I'm going to put my 2-inch mark. Remember, I made the bottom one 2 1/4. The middle ones will be 2 inches. Just a light line there. Measure over 1 inch. So from there, I can make a darkened line. And then I'll go ahead and connect the dots here. And this is giving me my tree shape, right? So you see how we've started to create that. I'll go up another 2 inches. And you could draft all this out first if you chose to. And then come back and darken it in if you wanted to. And then I'm going to do something unusual at the top because the top is going to be where it's going to pull in anyway. So I'm just going to go straight up here from this side. Just going to go straight up. Like that. Okay, that's going to make sense once it's done. And then I have to cut all this out to get my final shape. So I'll do that now, and then I'll show you what we do with this. I have my fabrics now laid one on top of the other, and they are doubled over. So this is on the fold as it comes off the bolt. And that's because I'm going to make a front and a back for each of these. And what that means is a front and a back and a lining front and back. So 2 linings, 2 pieces of lining fabric, this shape, and 2 pieces of outer fabric, this shape. You don't have to line these, but I just think it looks better. I like the idea also it could be kind of reversible, and that's kind of the ways that I'm making this version that sort of looks like this. So what we can do, and you'll see here, if I cut one of these out here, right, I could then flip this around and get a whole nother one out of it, so I could actually get 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this here and cut the basics. Now I'm going to make sure that I don't get too much of the raw edges over here. So I want to make sure I'm not getting that. And I'm just going to rough cut this out so that I can leave the other fabric intact. And you could mark this on with chalk and then cut it if you chose to. But this will get just enough cut out that I'm not working with an enormous piece of fabric. Now I'm working with a smaller piece of fabric. And because of that other fabric on the back being a little bit smaller, I'm going to flip this over to this side to make sure I get everything in there. Now you have a couple ways to go about doing this. I'm going to go ahead and cut the top and bottom straight lines because I know exactly where those will go. And like I said, if you wanted to make a better template out of this, or you were going to make a bunch of these, like if you were going to make more than 20, I would tell you, go find a laser cutting company in your area and have them cut you an acrylic template. That would be so great. I used to sell templates during the beginning of COVID-19. We made mask templates. Actually, many of you might be here from that. And remember when I did those. I don't have that gigantic laser anymore, so I can't sell you any of those, but that was a fun experience. So I'm going to cut into my points here. Now, I'm not worried about being too overly careful about what these look like. It's a Christmas tree. Christmas trees are not overly perfect. They're not, you know, we're not making a geometric perfection here. And nothing has to really line up. So, you know, as long as the pieces can get sewn together, we're in good shape. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors to trim that out of there. And then these are straight lines up. I'm just going to follow my stuff, you know. And then I'll go to the other side and have the exact same thing. Now, I'm going to leave this on here to help me weight it down so that I don't have to worry that anything's shifting or moving as I do this. And you could draw this on and then just use scissors, and you don't have to do this many at a time if you don't want to. Always close your blades. Right, I could just use my scissors and come in here and... Now I am cutting 4 layers of fabric, and so if you don't want to do that, you can just cut 2. You don't have to cut 4 layers at one time. And actually the scissors might have worked even better than the rotary cutter. I feel more comfortable. All right, that's all done. And what that means that we end up with is 2 pieces here that are the liner and 2 pieces here that are the outer fabric. Now what I'm going to do immediately is go in and put these right sides together. So I just need to flip these 2. Put these right sides together, and I'm going to sew along the top there. And I'll do the same thing here. Now, I'm also going to take this dark brown fabric or this light brown fabric that I have that I'm going to make the trunk of my tree with, and just cut a little rectangle out. And I'm going to make the rectangle needs to fit here to be the little foot or the trunk of the tree. So I'm going to cut a 3 by 3 square, so it'll fold up and become a 3 by 1.5 inch trunk. So 3 by 3 out of this, just a little corner here. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. So I'll do that now, and then we'll go to the sewing machine and I'll start sewing this stuff together. So I decided instead to go with a 4 by 3. So it's 4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. And I'm going to fold that so that the 4 inches, it becomes 2 by 3. And then I'm just going to stitch up each side. I do have white thread in my machine, which is not going to be super visible to you, but I think it's going to look better for this. And I will put the guide on my machine for my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Do what works best for you. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam. I won't be able to use this guide when I'm doing all of the angles for the leaves, you know, for the branches, but it will work for this. And I'm going to start from the folded side and just go in. I'm using a very short stitch length. Okay. And what that's going to do now is I can turn this inside out, and I'll basically get my branch, I keep calling it that, my tree trunk that'll hang down below, and just point it out with whatever you use. I'm using a small knitting needle at the moment, but you can use any kind of a point turner, just as long as it doesn't have too sharp of a point, because you don't want to push that point out. And that's going to hang off the bottom. We'll iron that in a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew those top seams like I showed you. All the way down. There's that one. And then the dark green fabric. The reason I do that is then I can open this up, and that gives me where my top edge is. And then I'm going to fold these two sides in and make a nice finished seam along the edge. So what I'll do with that is just come along and sort of press this open with my fingers, just to get it opened so when I fold this over. Now I'm going to fold it over about a 1/2 inch. Now you could measure that if you wanted. I'm not as worried about the measurement, but you could go in and measure it. Basically, I'm folding it sort of to that point that we had cut earlier. And then actually, I'm going to fold it only in about 1/4 inch, but it'll take a 1/2 inch of fabric. And then when I put it under the machine, it'll then, so right at that 1/4 inch seam down, and there we go. And it gives us a nice finished edge on the other side. And I'll do that to all 4 sides, both sides of this darker one and both sides of this lighter one. Now, if you feel like you need to mark them so it's accurate, please do, because they do need to match each other on the other one. So each one needs to be made pretty much the same. And again, we'll just finger press that open all along there. And if you needed to press it with your iron, go for it. What this is going to allow us to do is basically make this thing reversible, which is kind of fun. So now those two kind of match each other. Look how good that is. So we're going to place one straight down. We're going to place this one face down. Get stuff out of the way. And then put the other one on top of it. Make sure they're lining up. Now you might find that they don't exactly line up, and that means you just need to flip one around, because it means that you just cut one side different than the other. But they're pretty well coming together. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to yeah, I can't do what I just said I was going to do because I just did it wrong. I love this. I absolutely love this, because now I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do, because I just messed it up. Let me go back and figure it out. So I figured out exactly what I did wrong. I needed to put two of them together, not the two different ones had to go together. That's the only way you're going to make it go inside out. So I finally figured it out. I'm going to line my pieces up and sort of clip or pin them together, because now I've got to sew them properly. So what I'm going to do, and I want to give you a nice view of this, I'm not going to sew together too far here. I'm going to start a little further down, because I have to leave that channel, remember, for these to properly, for the cord to go through. And so I'll leave about half of this. I'll start sewing about halfway down. I'll do it on the green part. I think that'll be easier to see. And then I will get a few pins and just pin this together so that I know it's not moving too far. I'm going to pin here on the inside. We'll take off the guide, though. I don't want this to fall apart. Now, the other thing I have to do is put my little piece here. Now, you could easily put a little stuffing in here if you wanted it to be stuffed, but I don't think I need that. I will sort of fold this in half to figure out where the center is so that I can properly put it in the center. I'll just give a little crease with my finger. to figure out where the center is. And then I'll lift up. Okay. And I know where the center of this is, and I'll put that in there. And then I'll just pin that across so it won't go anywhere. It's all going to be stuck in there. Nice. And yeah, once I get that all pinned together, I'll even, for good measure, put a pin through all three of those layers there. And I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could use a bigger seam allowance if you felt like it was necessary as you go through all of this. But I feel like I'm cut pretty accurate. If it's not cut accurately, then just don't do that. Don't put more than a quarter of it. Go more than a 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to put my pin through here at about halfway up this. And that'll tell me where to start and stop sewing. So I leave a bit of a piece. And I'll go ahead and start sewing right here. I will backstitch. I want to make sure that I backstitch this. Yeah, quite a bit. I'm going to use my needle down position because it'll help me get my proper 1/4 inch seam as I go through. You could mark your 1/4 inch seams as well if you needed to, but I'm pretty good at doing that now. I can eyeball it pretty well. Went a little too far, but that's okay. And that'll help us get our points. You could draw them on if you needed to draw your 1/4 inch sort of points. As you get out to these points, that's going to be the hardest part to make sure stays pointy. Now, it is important to note that I'm only going to have the little stem part on the green side. If you did want to stem on the inside, if the other side, if you were going to turn it inside out, then you would have to put that stem down on the other side too. I keep saying stem, but I really mean trunk of the tree. This is where I'm sewing over that trunk. And I'm going to leave this, I'm going to leave an opening down here along this side to turn it inside out. And you could add that stem in later, the trunk in later, if you felt like you really wanted it to be truly reversible. And the odds are that I am going to do that. So we shall see. So that one side's been completely done. I can take all my pins out. I'm not going to do pins on the other side because I'm pretty confident, but you might want to do it. And then I am going to put my trunk in, but I will do that when I close this up after I've turned it completely inside out. So I'll go back to my point about halfway where I think I know I want to start. I got that sound in my machine like I don't have bobbin. Do you know what that sound is like? And it's true, I don't. Let me fix that and I'll be back. Yeah, the bobbin was definitely out. If you're new to sewing, one of the things that you're going to really help yourself to do is to know what your machine sounds like when different things are happening. So pay attention to the sounds that your machine is making. And when you figure out, when you run into a problem and you go, man, I ran out of bobbin, think to yourself, well, what did that sound like? And if you start to notice your machine making that noise, you can stop and check, and so you don't run 20 inches of sewing thinking you're doing an amazing job and turns out you ran out of bobbin. Because trust me, that will happen to you. And it's not pleasant. Down here at the bottom, I'm just gonna backstitch and leave an opening of a couple of inches, because that's where I'll insert I'll turn it inside out, and that's where I'll insert the other trunk. I really want this to be truly reversible. I think that really will build upon that video that I saw. So again, I saw this in a video previously, and but it was just a short, like a Facebook reel, and I really would rather show off a version where you can hear the whole instructions. rather than just partial. All right, so those things are done. And what we're gonna do now is birth this inside out. But let me show that to you over on my table. So here at the table, I have that piece done. Now I need to do a few things to get this ready. It's not quite ready for turning because I have to clip some things. So what I need to do is come in here and clip into each of these corners, and I'm gonna chop off all these tails. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to where the stitching was and not cut actually into the stitching. I'll show you here on the darker fabric. I'm gonna cut close to the stitching, but not exactly. And I'm cutting right across that angle. That didn't do both sides. There you go. And that's just gonna get that. So when it turns, I don't have to worry about turning each of these pieces. Now, the other thing I need to do is cut into the corners, but I'm not gonna cut all the way to the thread. I'm gonna cut probably about a millimeter or 2 millimeters away, because I want all this material to turn as well when I turn this thing inside out. And even up here, I need to do it. Now, I'm not as worried about this point, but you could chop it off if you wanted to, that point. And then I'm just gonna do that on all 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just gonna clean up my mess here a little bit. And then we can birth this thing. So what I'm gonna do is take the hole here that I left at the bottom and just turn all of this inside, right side out through that particular hole. Now there is a pin still left in there that I've got to watch out for, that I need to look at, because I had pinned that piece in. I had pinned in the trunk of the tree, and it's down here. So you see that pin was in there. So just be careful if you put a pin in and you're turning inside out. And there's that little trunk comes out. So here's our misshapen tree. Now I will use something, I'm gonna use a longer knitting needle, a bigger knitting needle this time that won't be as pointy, and I'll put it in through that hole, and it'll let me come down here and run along all of those seams. See, this is where the knitting needle is, right there. And I can take the point of it and run it along those seams and then stick it out to those points. Now I'm not pushing really hard, I'm just kind of barely nudging those out. And then I'll follow that seam up the side, and then it pulls a whole nother little tree branch out. Look at that. And then I can just do that all around all 4 sides. So I'm gonna fold each end of this in by 1/4 of an inch, just the tiniest amount, just to get that folded and have a nice finished edge for when I turn this. So I'll do that on all 4, I have 2 of these strips. I'll do that on all 4 of these strips. Well, both of the strips on all 4 ends of the 2 strips. This is not necessary, I just don't want a raw edge at all. So I'll do that on both of those, and then I'm gonna come along and turn it right sides together and stitch 1/4 of an inch seam all the way down the edge. And you could use your seam allowance guide. I have a guide on the side of my machine, but I'm not using it. Now at one end, I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch across. at one end. So now that's closed at one end and opened at the other. And really, I could have just folded over this end instead of folding it over on both sides. It strikes me that I didn't show you how I turned this tube specifically. I use a tube turner, and there are videos online for how to use that. I use this system, so you'll have to check those out. I don't really want to make another one. This video is already long enough as it is. So here's my ironing board. I am making a video soon about all the mistakes that I've made so you don't have to, and that's going to include why I now have a piece of wood under this wool ironing mat. And some of you will already know why. I've actually been intentionally using this ironing mat wrong on my cutting surface because I want to, for that video, I want to show some bad choices. It was hard to do because I don't like messing things up, but I had a really good deal on this ironing or cutting mat, and I'm actually going to cut the mat down a little smaller, so I'm okay with the fact that I messed up part of it for the video. All right, now here at the end where that opening is, where I turned it inside out, I am going to give it a quick press there, and I'm going to put that extra piece in. So I will lay that guy in there, sort of centered along that edge, tuck in all the scraps, tuck him in just a bit. Doesn't really matter how far in it goes, just this is in enough. And I'm going to do, in a minute, I'm going to do a quick stitch over him to close that end up. So that'll work out really well. I'll just give it a little pin to hold it in. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to stitch that real quick. I'll come back and then I'll show you how to turn this whole thing inside to where the lining goes inside. And you'll hear me stitching now because I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this real quick. You'll see I just stitched a little edge across there. There's a little bit of threads coming out that I'll take out. Some that I'll trim. Now remember, this is the lining fabric or the other side fabric because you can do this thing. This is a reversible, and this is so we need to just turn something inside out, right side. We need to put something in the inside. So I'm going to separate these fabrics, and dump this inside. Just push it inside. You don't have to get too specific to start. And I want to fold it right along that edge where those two fabrics come together. Fold it right up along that edge. Get it to fold exactly. And it'll just all tuck in together. And you can pin these if you have to. That would be really helpful, actually, to give them a pin if you felt like you needed to. But I'm also going to use my iron and press these together here. Because you've got a little point sticking out for the tree. So I got that done. You can go iron all of that around to get it straight. All right, those are ready. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch a line across these. All right, so what I need to make sure I do is go ahead and sew. I'm going to put here, find a space because I'm going to start right where those points come together. And it looks like 3/4 inch on my machine is about the right thing. So I'm going to come along and sew a channel just all along there. Now I already did the other side, so you'll see the channel on the outside of here. And now that's ready for me to finish these and put them through here. Let's get to that. All right, our last step is to put these strips through here. And we're gonna put one through going one direction with the fold over here and the two tails coming out. And the others we're gonna go in the other direction, and that's so we can pull this and cinch it tight. So there's many ways to get this through here. One of them would be to put a safety pin through the end and you could feed it through. I use a hemostat method, which I really like. So I'm gonna take these hemostats and sort of, I'm not gonna close them completely because I need to be able to get it open, but I am gonna push them through and get as much of this material on here. Now this is not good for super long things you're trying to thread, but for this it's fine. So now I can still kind of get it open at the end, and I will put a little bit of that material in there, and then I'm gonna close those hemostats. So now they've clamped on to that. You see they've clamped here. And then what I can do is just pull that material through. Now you don't wanna pull it all the way completely through, just a little bit coming out, because then I have to go to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm not gonna close it. Okay, I'm gonna get that through there. And there's also, remember, there's folded edges in here, so I'm trying to get it open so I don't go through the folded edges. There we go. And I get it open enough, so I'm gonna get the other end of this one that's coming through here. And I'm gonna put it in there, get it clamped on. Now I am gonna close that clamp there. So now it's definitely clamped on, and I can pull it through. Now, before you do anything else with these, because now the other ones are gonna feed the other way, I wanna go ahead and pull it closed and actually kind of close it and tie a knot off of these two. So I will. So I decided instead of tying that, I would just give it a stitch. And I think that actually works better. This allows us to lay really nice and flat. And so what I'm gonna do is come over and flip this over, because I want my fold of this one to be on this side. And this is gonna allow me to come over and put my hemostat through from this side. Now remember, there's material all in here. There's already extra material in there, so I just have to be super careful. I'm gonna have a little more bulk in here. But we should be able to come out, and now you're out in the open. Can open that just enough to get that piece in there. And then now just be able to pull it through just like I did. Well, I lost it. Okay, well, I didn't have enough of a pull on it. Take that back out. Just gotta be careful as you pull that through. Okay, there we go. That came through, no problem. Then I go to the other side and do the same thing through there. Now, you don't have to use hemostats. Like I said, there are many other things. There are bodkins and other things that will do exactly this that you need to do. So don't worry about it. You can find a solution that works well for you. This is just the method I wanted to show you today. And I'm gonna close up this end when I put this in the, when I go over and stitch these together. There we go. All right, so once I sew these two together, then we will have our finished piece. I'm gonna do that right now, and then I'm gonna come show it to you. All right, so that's our finished piece there, and I'm just gonna pull these out straight on either side. We have our cute little bag that we can put stuff in, and then when you pull it tight, now it makes your cute little bag. And there you get your Christmas tree bag that you can stuff with all kinds of goodies. All right, and there is that bag. Isn't it so cute? It's a little cute little Christmas tree bag. I like actually coordinating the brown straps with the the little trunk at the bottom. You could, of course, have made this taller if you wanted, because there was more room on the fat quarter. You could make it even taller. You just have to tape a couple pieces of paper together to make your pattern. But what I like is that now this becomes completely reversible. If I can pull it out of there. Would be easier with cord, of course, like I said. Now it's got a nice center, but you can also turn this now completely inside out if you chose to. And you'd have to point out all your little, you know, corners and stuff like before, but you could do that and make now your Christmas tree going out of a different fabric on the inside. I'm just gonna quickly do that. And now we have a Christmas tree in a different design, different fabric. So it's cute how reversible this becomes. It's really a lovely little treat bag. I absolutely hope that you will try this out. And I have to tell you, I can bring you videos like this because of my awesome fans on Patreon. I so much appreciate them. I'm putting their names over on the side here. If you've joined me on Patreon in the last week or two, your name won't be here because I'm using a pre-done thing. But if you have joined, thank you so, so much. I'm gonna put some other content on there as we get closer to Christmas, but I wanted to share this special video with you here on YouTube first. And until next time, folks, stay crafty. And hey, it's only November, but you can still get into the Christmas spirit. Bye for now. Okay, I like a lot of treats, so maybe this bag's not big enough. I would want one big enough to put, I don't know, like a car in.